God. Amen. We're at the end of the Coptic year, almost finishing, and the subject of today's gospel is being persecuted. To have hardship. And this can come from any direction. You can be persecuted by your own family, your own wife, your own husband, your children, your parents. You can be persecuted by co-workers. You can be persecuted by your friends. You can be persecuted by your boss. You can be persecuted by people from another religion or other ethnic background, from another gender, or from no gender. You can be persecuted by anything and by anybody. Here is today, Jesus in the gospel is being persecuted by the leaders of his time. The gospel begins by the scribes. The scribes are the people that actually work on the Holy Book, on the Bible of the Hebrews. They copy it. And there was a prestigious job in their time. If you are a scribe, you learn how to read and write, and you are responsible for teaching. You're a teacher. So scribes are rabbis, teachers. So the scribes who came down from Jerusalem, and let's just say this, not only they persecuted Jesus, they actually wanted to impose control over the city or the towns where Jesus come from Galilee. Galilee to the Jerusalemites is the farmer, fisherman community. They looked down on them. They didn't really respect them much. So they wanted to make sure that everybody in Israel is under their theology, under their control. So they came down from Jerusalem to seek this famous teacher in Galilee who does miracles. And when they saw him and the people talked about him, they said, no, don't listen to him. He is casting demons by the head of demons. Okay? I remember hearing multiple people complaining. I've heard one time a bishop complaining about persecution under another bishop. Another bishop is persecuting the bishop. And he says, oh, what I'm teaching is wrong. It made me sad, it break my heart that the bishop would say that. And to complain to me as a priest, and I feel like he's at the end of his rope. I've heard a priest complaining about another priest persecuting them. I've heard about Sunday school teachers being persecuted by head Sunday school teacher. Of course, I hear a lot of husbands complaining about being persecuted by their wives. And vice versa, so no offense. Vice versa. So why people persecute others? What does persecute mean? To give hard time to someone for no fair reason. Persecution happens when it's not fair. A court orders somebody to go to prison, and because they stole, and it was proven that without the shadow of doubt that they stole, is not persecution, because he or she deserves it. But when the person doesn't deserve the treatment, it is persecution. What did Jesus do to be persecuted? He casted demons. So there has to be something else going on, not because it's a fair treatment. There's something else. Let's look at different reasons why people persecute other people. The first persecution ever happened. The first persecution ever happened is a brother to a brother. You know the story. But the persecution was extreme. He killed him. What was the reason? Jealousy. The first reason for persecution is jealousy. What is jealousy? It's a competition over limited resources, limited attention, limited love, limited money, limited whatsoever, recognition. When a person perceives that his portion of recognition or attention or love is going to be taken by someone else, what do? They try very hard to fight them. And sometimes they don't know what they're doing. They go into this frenzy. I remember a person one time, a friend, a very dear friend of mine, went to the monastery to visit with his spiritual guide, a monk. And during his retreat, which was almost like 3, 4, 5 days, I forgot how long it was, but then the brother of the monk came. And my friend told me that this was the beginning of sorrows. So somehow he found himself attacking the brother, calling him names, making fun of everything he says and does. And my friend said, I don't know why I was doing this. After like half an hour or an hour of continuous abuse, he stopped and said, wait a second, well, I'm not usually like this. What am I doing? And the answer was very simple. You're jealous. Because that's the spiritual father that you look to and you want to spend time with, and here comes his brother taking from your time. That happens a lot. A lot. On all levels. So the first reason for persecution is jealousy. Guess what the scribes were trying to persecute Jesus for? What's the reason? Jealousy. They're jealous of him. He's becoming more famous. He's getting more fame, even all the way to Jerusalem. They start hearing about him in Jerusalem, this prophet from Galilee who's going around doing all kinds of good things, miracles, unbelievable stuff. So the first reason is jealousy. What's the second reason? Move along, you come to the Israelites in Egypt. This is a very hard case of persecution, mass persecution. Pharaoh wanted to get them exterminated. He actually took, it's very interesting, at the beginning of the book of Exodus, they call it the book, in the Hebrew name of the Bible, of the book, is not Exodus, it's Shemot. Shemot means the book of names. The Hebrew has a way of titling the books, not like we do in the Septuagint, in the version that we have. They title it by the first words of the book. Genesis is called Parashit. Parashit means in the beginning, because the book starts with in the beginning. The book of Exodus is called, this is the book of names. Then the book is called Shemot, the book of names, the names. Because the book starts like that. It's the names of all the people that came to Egypt after Jacob came to Egypt. He brought his family with him. He had 69 or 68 people with him. And the names were listed. In the same chapter, there are 2 women, which is very weird for the Jewish people to think about women being named who has no significance in the lineage of David. Nobody really cared about them. It's Shipra and Poa. 2 weird names out of nowhere. Why they're mentioned? They're actually midwives. Women who work to help delivering babies. Midwives. And those 2 women were mentioned because of the following. When Pharaoh wanted to have his plan A for cutting, limiting the number of Israelites, he told them, when you find a boy being delivered, kill it. I'll give you money. If you find the girl, let it live. And then the 2 midwives who were Hebrews refused. They were not afraid. They were not afraid. Who was afraid? Pharaoh. He's afraid of the men that will be born in this big, strong family, and they will take over the country. He's afraid of them. And then that's why he started persecuting them. The first one is jealousy. The second one is fear. When you're afraid of someone, and you want them not to take over because something bad is going to happen. The fear is a second reason for persecution, and that is also there. When someone is afraid of losing or being controlled or whatever, they get to start persecuting people whom we are afraid of. So what did Pharaoh do? He put them to hard work. He couldn't really control their numbers, put them to hard work, and had them not even to look up. They could not look up because of the amount of work they had to do and the amount of time they had to spend. No time. He kept them busy with a lot of fierce pressure. Those two reasons, the fear and the jealousy, almost dictate all cases of persecution. Fear of strange things, of things that we don't know. Fear of the unknown. And in a country like this or in any other culture, when you have someone, and especially in the less educated, less exposed communities, you get the fear of the foreigner. And it's all over, not just here in the south. It's in Egypt, in the Upper Egypt, everywhere. You have this fear of the foreigner. You're always suspicious of somebody who does not look familiar. And that fear of the foreigner leads to persecution too. For foreigners are being persecuted. That's why there's a verse in the letter to the Hebrews. Be kind to strangers, because you yourself was a stranger. He's talking to them about being in Egypt. The Jews have something about this to say. The Israelites, they say, we love the Egyptians and the Egyptians don't love us. And we ask them why. Because there is a verse that says, love the Egyptian because he hosted you. He said, we know, we have a commandment to love them, but they hate our guts. I can understand that. So, persecution happens. There is a reason why we sometimes persecute that is not of that, the stranger part, the fear part, that I want to explain to you a little bit. One of the psychologists studied this very deeply, and he called it the shadow. I'll tell you about this very quickly. So, the shadow. What is the shadow? He says, in our mind, we have dual principles. We always, since we learn how to differentiate good from bad, we have something labeled as good, and the opposite of is, once you say something is good, then the opposite of it is agreed. So you say, knowledge is good. Then ignorance is evil. Generosity is good. Then taking or stinginess is evil. You say courage is good. Then fear is that correct? Do you really agree with that? I disagree, because sometimes fear is healthy. Some fear is very needed, much needed. Sometimes stinginess in certain situation is needed. So when you apply this generally and you start seeing it in somebody, that's what happens when you find somebody. So you're actually glorifying courage, and you find somebody afraid. What do you think of them? Not good. You put them down. You glorify knowledge, and so if you find somebody not knowledgeable about something, what do you feel? And the more you put this one up, the more the other person or the other side will become disgusting to you. And you might start persecuting the person. I know people who've done this. You persecute the person, I don't know, and you don't know why. You say to yourself, for some reason, this person I don't like a lot. I just don't like them. I don't know why. Did they do anything to you? He said, no, they didn't do anything to me. So why do you persecute them? Because they represent to you the item that you don't respect, you don't value. They call that's Jung, Carl Jung. He said, the one that you love very much, you want to put forward, you want to show everybody that you have it, knowledge, courage, masculinity, femininity, whatever. You want to put that one forward, that's your persona, that's your mask. The one that you hate and you're not really interested in, you want to put it behind you, becomes your shadow. When you see it in somebody, you persecute them. Why do you persecute them? Because you're afraid. They represent you the things that you don't like, you want to run away from, you want to fight. For this reason, it's important to stop, and I think this is an important message for us. Before you go and persecute somebody, stop and say, what did she do to me? What did she do to me? What did he do to me? Was they unpleasant to me? Did they treat me bad? Even if they did. There is a discourse here from the apostles, I'm going to tell you about this. When you are persecuted, there is something to do. When you are persecuting, you need to stop and think. Withdraw yourself. Take yourself away from the situation and say, objectively, what did this person do to me that I'm actually attacking so much, I'm so negative against them? Maybe it is not their fault. I know a person who was in the medicine, and they were very much into knowledge. They liked to read a lot. And this person liked to have all the knowledge they can get. They were eating knowledge like food. And there was this other person who was lazy, not really interested in knowing. They are not really after knowledge. And the knowledgeable person who called himself knowledgeable was like hating this person, hating his guts. And I actually asked the question, say, what did he do to you? He said, nothing, I just hate him. He's such a bad person. I said, why do you call him bad? I said, I don't know. Let's stop a little bit and say, think about it. Think about it. And after maybe a week of deliberating with himself, said, I found it. I hate ignorance. And he to me is he labeled him, ignorant person. Is all ignorance bad? Let me ask you this. All ignorance bad? Ignorance of sin is bad? Absolutely not. We should all be ignorant of sin. Okay. Somebody else I remember was very angry. And there's another person who hated him because he said anger is evil. A person with anger is not supposed to be dealt with. He's supposed to be stopped. Somebody has to fight him. And I asked the person again, do you think all anger is evil? Is somebody angry with injustice evil? Is somebody angry at wrongdoing is evil? There is a place for anger. There is a place for ignorance. There is a place for stinginess. There is a place for all these characters. There is no commandment against them. Let's just put it this way. If you find yourself fighting something, commandment said not to fight, stop, because God knows better. Let's go to the persecuted side. If you are persecuted, let us read a little bit from today's letters, and I think this is important for us to get. If you are on the other side of the persecution equation, I like to start with the Catholic one, which is St. Peter speaks about different kind of persecution. First of all, he says, servants, be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the harsh. Wow. He's saying, even if you're persecuted as a slave, submit. For this is commendable, if because of conscience toward God one endures grief, suffering wrongfully. There's someone who is actually paying attention to everything that happens to you, and they know exactly what you're going through. And you will be rewarded for this. There is a balance keeper, an equalizer. And that balance keeper and equalizer is Pantocrator. He can control everything. And there's nothing that's happening to you that will not be balanced. The good and the bad. If you're getting too much fun on the expense of others and you're persecuting, that's not good. If you're not getting too much fun because you are being persecuted, expect the reward. For this is commendable, he said. Commendable, that means praiseworthy. If because of conscience toward God, that you don't want to do anything wrong, you don't want to hate somebody, you don't want to retaliate, you don't want to do something bad to someone who's persecuting you, and you're bearing with it. And there is a chance for that every day, every single day. Why? How? because he endures grief, suffering wrongfully. For what credit is it if when you are beaten for your faults, you take it patiently? But when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before God. That's how you are raised up, and God recognizes you as a friend. For to this you were called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow his steps. Let's look at Christ. That's what he's talking about. This is the gospel. Who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth. Who, when he was reviled, what does revile mean? That's a hard English word. Revile. Called names, cussed at, humiliated openly. When he was reviled, did not revile in return. He didn't answer word for a word. A cuss for a cuss. He didn't do that. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but committed himself to him who judges righteously. He knows his Father sees everything that happens to him. He who himself bore our sins in his own body. Well, he took our punishment, although he didn't need it. On the tree, the cross, that we, having died to sin, might live for righteousness, by whose stripes you were healed. That's a beautiful verse from Isaiah. That Jesus had to be stripped, has to be striped, to be whipped, to be beaten, so that we can receive healing. This is how it's looked at. For you were like sheep going astray, but have now returned to the shepherd and overseer of your soul. Now he turns to the practical items. Wives, likewise be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, means that he's talking to people who are mixed marriages. A wife believes, the husband did not believe. The wife got baptized, the husband did not get baptized. They're living together. He said they will be one without a word, but just by the conduct of the wives, of their wives. He's saying to the wives, accept that persecution, accept that harshness. This is what do you call it? Salvific. Salvific, that's the adjective. To have salvation for the husband, the wives has to be, in certain cases, I'm not saying this, all persecution happened to the people of God is salvific. It is salvific. The example is Jesus himself. If the head got persecuted so that we can be saved, the body will be persecuted so that everybody will be saved. When they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear, do not let your adornment, and he says, do not be outwardly appearing nice and looking good, because the inside is what will matter. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. He says this is more precious than the jewel and the stuff that we want to decorate ourselves with. Then he says, husbands likewise, dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together for the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. If the husband persecute the wife because they think they are stronger or powerful, or whatever it is, like Karl Marx would say, the fight over the control at home. But the husband thinks that I'm the breadwinner, which is not the case in many houses now. I am going to be the one, imposing my will and doing the control. Your prayers are hindered. Husband take advantage of a situation, or the wife. They try to connect with God. They are not recognized. Why? Because they are persecuting, not being persecuted. Listen to what God said to Moses in the burning bush. I've heard the cry of my people. I've seen their suffering. He heard and seen the suffering of the oppressed, the persecuted. You think he would listen or hear the persecutors? Forget it. Think about it again. So the prayer are hindered when a person in a persecuting place. They cannot pray. They will try and they feel like they're talking to the wall or to the ceiling. Their prayers bounce back because they are doing the offensive. In Acts Now listen to this. St. Paul went to Caesarea in Israel by the Mediterranean Sea. Caesarea is on the sea. They went into a house, the house of Philip, the deacon. He was a preacher and an evangelist. And he was one of the 7 deacons. And they stayed with him, with Luke. And he had 4 girls who were prophesying. And then one of the prophets came, his name is Agabus. And what did he do? He had to come and he took Paul's belt, bound his own hands and feet, and said, "Thus says the Holy Spirit, so shall the Jews at Jerusalem bind the man who owns this belt and deliver him into the hands of the Gentiles." So they will have to bind him. He took his belt. He took the belt of Paul. And when he heard these things, both we and those who told him not to go up to Jerusalem, this is it, we're not going to let you go. Then Paul answered and said, "What do you mean by weeping and breaking my heart? For I'm ready not only to be bound, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus." This is an answer to a prophecy, or the fulfillment of a prophecy Jesus said himself. What happened when Paul was going to Damascus at the beginning of the story of Paul? He was going to do what? To persecute Christians. Why was he persecuting Christians? Do you know why? He was jealousy or fear? Fear. What was he afraid of? He was afraid that his own work will be in vain. That he had been working so hard to gain this status, and he's defending his religion will be knocked down. Nobody will follow it anymore. That's all the Pharisees. So when Jesus met him, what did Jesus say? "Saul, Saul, why are you," very interesting, "why are you persecuting the Christians?" Me. Very weird. Was Paul persecuting Jesus? Was he part of the soldiers that beat him up and put the nails in his hand? So who was he persecuting? He was persecuting the followers, the body. That Jesus took it personally. It's a beautiful verse that Jesus is following, actually. It's very beautiful. It says, "In all their hardships, in all their troubles, he was troubled." In all the troubles of his people, the Lord was troubled. Means every time he goes through certain problems or persecution, Christ is troubled with you. In all their troubles, he was troubled, and the angel of his presence did not leave them, but saved them. What is he saying here? You're persecuting me. Don't think you're persecuting. So Saul said, "Lord, who are you? I don't know you. How can I persecute you when I don't know you?" He said, "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting." And he said, and in the same day, he went to, or in the same time, he went to Annas in Damascus and said to him, "There is a soul that's coming to you. Baptize him. Don't be afraid of him." But he said, "This is the man who's coming to kill us. You want me to receive him? He's going to kill me." He said, "Don't worry of him, because I will show him how he should suffer for me." So from being a persecutor to being a persecuted. That's what Jesus did with Saul. And that's why he is ready now. He's very ready, very comfortable with it. I'm not ready just to be tied. I'm ready to also die. And this is where you find the people of Christ. We don't want to be persecuted. Nobody wants to. But be ready for it. It comes from your own family, from your own wives and husbands. It comes from your children, from your parents. It comes from your work. It comes from any time. Be ready and know, in a persecuted place, my prayer is much more heard, and I have me. He sees everything. I cannot be changed. We have a tendency to do this. Let us retaliate. Let us say a bad word. Let's assert our position. Let's tell everybody we're strong. We're not weak. But guess what? You're going to do it. You're going to do it alone. Alone, by yourself. If you can save yourself and say the truth, stand up and say the truth. It doesn't mean that you accept unfair treatment and you don't say anything. Jesus said it. When he was slapped, he said to the man, "What did I say wrong?" If I said something wrong, tell everybody what I said wrong. If I didn't say anything wrong, why are you slapping me? It's important we do that too. النهارده ربنا بيكلمنا على الموقف بتاعه مع السكرايبس اللي جم من اورشليم علشان حاجه واحده بس، انهم يقولوا للناس كلهم انه بيتعامل معاهم ببعل زبوب، او ان اللي بيطلع الشياطين ببعل زبوب. بعل زبوب ده اسم التريقه اللي قالوه اليهود على البعل بتاع الكنعانيين، سموه بعل الذباب، نوع من التريقه. وهنا ربنا ما عملش حاجه وحشه، ما عملش حاجه غلط يعني. كل اللي عمله ان هو طلع الشياطين وشاف الناس وسمع عنه في اورشليم انه ايه، فجايين يعملوا ايه؟ جايين يضايقوه، يطفشوه ويطفشوا الناس من حواليه. نوع من الاضطهاد يعني، نوع من الاضطهاد. الاضطهاد موجود في كل ناحيه وفي كل مكان في العالم وكل ناحيه في حياتنا. اول مره نسمع عن الاضطهاد ده كان اخ لاخوه، قايين وهابيل. وعندنا سببين كبار للاضطهاد. السبب الاولاني هو الغيره او الحسد، والسبب الثاني هو ايه؟ الخوف. الغيره هي اللي عملت كده في هابيل، موتت هابيل. الغيره هي اللي اضطهدت داوود وخلته يجري من قدام شاول وكان هيموت. الغيره اللي رمت ابن يعقوب يوسف في البير ورمته في السجن واتباع كعبد. الغيره موجوده في القصص كلها، القصص كلها بتاعتنا، حياتنا كلها مليانه من الموضوع ده للاسف. الجزء الثاني هو الخوف. نشوفه في القصه بتاعت فرعون في مصر لما خاف من اسرائيل ان هم كتروا وبقوا ناس كتار جدا وهيبقوا جيش كبير، فاضطر يعمل ايه؟ يحد من نموهم، ما عرفش، حطهم في الشغل واضطهادهم وصوتهم طلع لربنا وربنا سمعه. الخوف هو اللي خلى الفريسيين دول يجوا والسكرايبس دول يجوا عشان يوقفوا ربنا يسوع المسيح، لان صيته بينتشر بسرعه جامده جدا وخافوا على نفسهم. وده اللي خلى بولس شاول يضطهد المسيحيين في ايامه. الخوف هو اللي عمل كده. الخوف موجود في كل حته، خوف من الحاجات الغريبه. الخوف ان مراتي تركبني زي ما بنقول في اللغه العاميه، او ان جوزي يتحكم فيا بطريقه غير مقبوله، او ان ابويا وامي ما يدونيش الحريه ان انا ابقى راجل واكبر واعمل اللي انا عايزه، او ان عيالي ما يسمعوش كلامي بعد كده. كل دي مخاوف، كلها مخاوف. في نوع من الخوف مش سهل ان احنا نعرفه. احيانا بنكره ناس ما نعرفهمش، ما نعرفش نكرههم ليه. ودي نقطه خطيره، عايز واحد يقعد معاها شويه، يقعد مع نفسه. اذا لقيت في حياتك حد انت ضده، تعبان منه ومش عارف بالظبط هو عمل ايه انه تعبني التعب ده كله، نقف شويه. لا يكون يمثل ليك حاجه انت ما بتحبهاش. بيقولوا كده في راجل اسمه عالم النفس اسمه كارل يونغ من سويسرا، قال كده في عنده حاجه اسمها القناع والظل. القناع اللي انا عايز الناس تشوفه فيا، مش شرط يكون انا، بس عايز الناس تشوفني كده، عايزه تشوفني ذكي، الناس تشوفني فاني، ابن نكته. الناس عايزه تشوفني ان انا مثلا، عايز الناس تشوفني ان انا متعلم ومثقف. اللي ورايا العكس بتاع الفاني او الفكاهي، يعني ان هو يبقى انسان كئيب. عكس الفهيم انسان جاهل. فبالتالي لما اشوف واحد يمثل لي الحاجه اللي انا مش عايزها، بعمل ايه؟ بحاربه وبكرهه. خلي بالكم من النقطه دي. فدي عايز الواحد يقعد معاها شويه ويواجه نفسه كده قدام نفسه، يقول ايه يا ترى انا بضطهد الشخص ده ليه؟ الاضطهاد بسبب الخوف اذا الانسان استحمله، ده اللي قريناه في الرساله بتاعت بطرس، يقول بيكلم الناس اللي تحت اضطهاد، يكلم العبيد ويكلم الزوجات ويكلم الازواج كمان. قال ان العبد اللي مضطهد اذا استحمل وفضل في الامانه بتاعته. في قصص كتير اتقال عن ازاي في الجيش وفي الخدمات اللي فيها القوه الشديده الناس ترد جامد على اللي بيحصل ده بطريقه مباشره او مش مباشره. فاللي بيرد بطريقه مش مباشره او بطريقه مباشره هي نفس القصه، ان عنده احساس ان لازم يدافع عن نفسه. لازم اذا قدرنا ندافع عن نفسنا من غير ما نغلط او نسيء للناس حلو، لكن لو ما حصلش اعرف ان ربنا سامع. ايه اللي سمعه ربنا من مصر؟ صراخ مين؟ فرعون؟ ما سمعش حاجه من فرعون. سمع من مين؟ من إسرائيل. قال لك سمعت صراخ، رأيت مذلتهم وسمعت صراخهم ونزلت له إيه؟ له خلصهم. وده اللي بيقوله القديس بطرس، قال كده: لأن إذا احتملتم الألم وأنتم صانعون خيرا فهذا هو بر عند ربنا. ربنا يرفعنا، لقينا إن إحنا زي ناس قديسين قدامه. الكلام اللي نطلبه ربنا يدهوني. الحاجة الأخيرة في القصة بتاعت بولس قالوا له في القصة بتاعت أعمال الرسل، قالوا له أنت هتروح، اللي هيروح أورشليم، أنت هتروح أورشليم وهتتربط هناك وهتتاخد. قال لهم أنتوا بتحزنوني ليه؟ أنا مش مستعد بس إن أنا أتربط، أنا مستعد إن أنا أموت لأجل اسم المسيح. بولس ده نفسه اللي كان شاول، وربنا بيسأله بيقول له: شاول شاول لماذا تضطهدني؟ دلوقتي شاول بولس بقى إيه؟ مضطهد من أجل المسيح. ودي حاجة احنا لازم نتعلمها كلنا. الاضطهاد يجي لك من مراتك، من جوزك، من عيالك، من الشغل. فكر كويس جدا هتعمل ايه. ما تردش تلقائي، اصبر شوية، فكر فيها، قول يا ترى انا متضايق من الشخص ده ليه؟ ايه اللي بيعمله؟ اذا كنت انا اللي بضطهد يبقى لازم اسال نفسي السؤال ده، او لو انا اللي بضطهد لازم اشوف هعمل ايه، الرد بتاعي يكون مش مسيء ما يزعلش ربنا. دي الكلمتين اللي قالوا النهارده، لان ربنا نفسه لما رد عليهم قال لهم: لو انا بعلى زبول اخرج الشياطين، يبقى الشيطان انقسم على نفسه، يبقى مملكته هتخرب. ما شتمهمش. هم يقولوا له: انت معاك رئيس شياطين، كان المفروض يقول لهم: انتوا معاكوا ايه؟ جهنم كلها؟ اقول لهم ايه؟ لو هيرد عليهم، لو احنا مكان ربنا يسوع المسيح. شوف الصبر بتاعه والاحتمال بتاعه وطولة باله علينا وعلى الناس اللي تعبانين، ولنا واحد منهم، كلنا منهم، بنقاومه طول الوقت، ومع ذلك هو مطول باله علينا. ونفتكر دايما كده قبل ما نزعل من الناس اللي بيضطهدونا ان احنا بنضطهد ربنا نفسه لما ما نسمعش كلامه. احنا مين هنا فيكم ما ملوش شركه في صليب ربنا يسوع المسيح؟ مين يظن ان هو ما استفادش من الصليب ده خالص؟ اللي ما استفادش من الصليب يرد وياخد حقه. فاذا احتملني ربنا وشالني معاه وما زال بيشيلني لغايه دلوقتي، يبقى لازم اعمل ايه انا كمان؟ اصبر وما ردش الاساءه بالايه؟ بالاساءه. لإلهنا كل المجد، الاب والابن والروح القدس.